Just imagine this for a moment. A private company, yes, a simple trading company, is ruling over an entire country like India. No constitution, no democratic accountability. And suddenly, the British Parliament realizes, this is getting dangerous. Now pause for a second and think. If today a private company starts governing your entire state, collecting taxes, making laws, and not being answerable to anyone, would you accept it? This was exactly the situation in 18th century India. So the real question is, can a company be allowed to function like a government? And if it takes wrong decisions or exploits people, then who is accountable? This is where the real story of India's constitutional development begins. The Regulating Act of 1773, and remember this line carefully. This is the point where company rule slowly starts shifting towards state control. Now let's understand this step by step, not like notes, but like a story. We are in the historical background of Indian polity, and this topic is extremely important because for the first time, the British Parliament realized something crucial. The East India Company is no longer just a business organization. It has become a political power. And this conceptual shift is exactly what UPSC tests again and again. Now think about it. When a private company gains political power, what happens? It becomes unaccountable. And that's exactly what happened. Let's go back to the year 1765. The East India Company gets Diwani rights over Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Now what does that mean in simple terms? It means the company got the right to collect revenue. But this is where the game changes. Now the company is not just trading, it is collecting revenue and also running administration. So effectively, economic power plus political power equals complete control. And this is where the problem begins. Let me give you a simple example. If a person is collecting taxes, spending money, and maintaining accounts all by himself, will misuse happen or not? Exactly. That's what happened with the company. Officials came to India, made quick money, and went back to England rich. These people were called nabobs. Corruption became widespread, and there was no accountability system. Now comes a very serious event, the Bengal famine of 1770. Millions of people died, but the company did not reduce revenue demands. Now here is a conceptual question. Was this just a natural disaster, or was it also a failure of policy? This is where UPSC asks analytical questions. Then comes the third major issue, financial crisis. The company itself started going bankrupt. Corruption and mismanagement were so high that it had to ask for a loan from the British government. Now think, a private company ruling India is financially collapsing. Won't the British Parliament panic? They feared, if the company collapses, the British economy will also be affected. So finally, the Parliament decided, we must regulate the company. And this brings us to the Regulating Act of 1773. Now understand this carefully. This act did not end the company. It tried to control it. This line is very important. UPSC often creates traps here. Now let's see what changes this act introduced. The most important change, for the first time, the Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal. And the first Governor General was Warren Hastings. Now pay attention here. Before this, the three presidencies, Bengal, Bombay, and Madras, were largely independent. But now what happened? Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to Bengal. So for the first time, a form of centralization started in India. But here is the trap. This was not complete centralization, only partial. Along with the Governor General, an executive council of 4 members was created. Now here is something interesting. The Governor General was powerful, but not absolute. Decisions were taken by majority. So if the council disagreed, the Governor General could not impose decisions alone. This led to administrative conflicts. Now comes the most controversial part. The Supreme Court at Calcutta, 1774. For the first time, the British legal system was introduced in India. There was 1 Chief Justice and 3 judges. The first Chief Justice was Elijah Impey. But what was the problem? The court applied English law, while Indian society followed its own customs and traditions. Now imagine, applying English law to an Indian trader, will that create confusion? Exactly, and that's what happened. The result, legal chaos and conflict between judiciary and executive. This is a favorite area for UPSC. Now, to control corruption, company officials were banned from taking gifts and private trade was restricted. But remember, this did not eliminate corruption, it only tried to control it. Changes were also made in the Court of Directors. Their tenure was fixed, which brought some stability and accountability. Now let's look at the bigger picture. For the first time, The British Parliament brought the East India Company under its control. This is the biggest significance of this act. But problems did not end. Conflicts between the Supreme Court and the Governor-General increased. And finally, to resolve this, the Act of 1781, Amending Act, had to be passed. Now pause and think, what can UPSC ask from here? Governor versus Governor-General, 1773 versus 1774 versus 1781. Supreme Court versus High Court. This is exactly where the examiner creates traps. If I summarize this act in one line, remember this. 1773 equals company control plus centralization plus introduction of court. And finally, remember one thing. This was not just an act. It was the moment when the unchecked power of the company was challenged for the first time. This is where the journey begins, that eventually leads to the Indian Constitution. And UPSC ultimately tests this. Do you just remember facts, or do you understand the story? In the next lecture, we will move to Pitt's India Act of 1784, where the real shift of power becomes even clearer. Be ready.